Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jen and Sam Make a Movie. We're trying
Yay!
to share everything that we've learned and everything that we're learning about this crazy process called indie filmmaking, making a low budget feature that everyone can enjoy.
Yay!
So, Jen, hopefully you may know, is the writer of I'm Having an Affair with My Wife, also known as Affair Movie. And Jen, where did you get the idea for this movie?
I was trying to think about that the other day when you sent me these. We kind of talked about in advance some of the things we're going to talk about. So Sam sent me, some of these questions, and I was thinking, I have no idea, which is not a very good answer. I was taking a class on comedy screenwriting, and I knew right away before entering the class that the reason I was entering this class was because I needed to make this movie about this couple who end up having an affair with each other even though they're married. I have no idea where that idea came from. So it's
Divine
just
inspiration?
it's I because I don't know when it started. All my other like my sci-fi ideas and everything, like I know why I'm making a comic book character who shoots his author. That's because I read too many Batman comics. I know that, but I have no idea where this one came from. It's just like something I've been doing. Because and I've always wanted to do it. I don't because it's super cool. Some people have been talking to me a lot about the Pina Colada song, which is one of my new favorite songs. You know, the "Do you like
That's a great
Pina
intro. Yeah.
Colada?" Yeah, that would be
When,
really
when I'm
good.
pitching this to people or just, talking about our log line, everyone's like, oh, the Pina Colada song. You made it into a movie.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
someone actually brought that up on Twitter, which is funny. And it's a great lead in because you can talk about how it's actually different from the Pina Colada song. So, for those of you that don't know, our film's about Lashonda and Sungmin, these two characters who are married and they decide their marriage isn't going well, neither of them are happy, and they're going to have affairs online. They join this website, kind of like Ashley Madison, and they end up actually having affairs with each other accidentally, right? That's sort of where our movie starts, and we sort of branch out into these questions about infidelity and, what sort of things should we be focusing on in marriage? What are we really married to? Are you married to your career? Are you married to your hobbies? And we sort of we really start to explore those aspects. So, can you talk a little bit more about those ideas?
What I think is really cool about like working with you, Sam, actually, is that I think you're a lot deeper than I am. So it's really cool because you're really articulate about like the ideas of the film and what it's about. But one of the things, so I think you pretty much already said it all. But it was really fun. Part of it is too that it's just fun to imagine this married couple running around trying to figure out how to fall in love again. Um, I think there's a lot of things that our culture, our jokes, and everything tend to take the fun out of marriage. I was trying to find funny marriage jokes the other day to kind of share, and all of them are very negative. I think it's best summed up by I don't know if you guys have seen the movie about the twins who try to solve mysteries out in the West with their Uncle Stan. I have forgotten the name. But there's a part where the uncle, who's really grumpy, he drives by a couple who are getting ready to propose, and he makes a joke about how he misses his wife since the divorce, but her aim is getting better, or his wife always misses him, but her aim is getting better, and they don't laugh, and he says, "See, it's funny because marriage is terrible," and that's kind of our culture's prevailing attitude about marriage, because I think a lot of us, especially in our generation, are wondering like why get married at all? Like what is marriage? Why, you know, we have all
Why is
these
it more?
government
Why
debates.
is it
Yeah,
better than just being in a relationship with someone, a
exactly.
mutually monogamous relationship?
Yeah. And I'm very pro marriage because I really like the idea that you're making a promise to somebody and you're going to love them unconditionally, even if they end up being jerks. Somebody said to me on an airplane the other day, it's hard to know who somebody really is because somebody is already five different people by the time they're 30, which is very true. We change a lot. There's a kind of fake science thing out there that your body is a totally different body every 7 years. That's close to the truth. And it's similar with your personality. So marriage is really the decision that I'm going to love all those, 5 people, 10 people, however many people this person ends up being. I'm going to love and I'm going to have an adventure with this person. But that kind of commitment is a very difficult and dangerous commitment that very much requires being willing to make some sacrifices. And no one likes the word sacrifices. That's no fun. So it's a lot of fun to play it in a movie as, well, what are you really married to and what do you want to be married to? It's kind of fun. It's fun, also just fun to see like a powerful woman wrestling other people. I like that. It's fun to imagine people. We have a scene where they are sneaking around at LaShonda's a rising CEO at her business. And it's fun to see her and her husband sneaking around in the workplace to try to, find a place to hook up. Because we celebrate like sex and all our other media, so why can't we celebrate like married sex? Like that's cool. So, I don't know. I don't know if I'm rambling. Sorry, I'm gonna stop.
No, married sex is what's the word?
It's kind of
Sort of
taboo in our
clean.
culture.
It's taboo and it's perceived as boring, or at the very least, what's the word? It's scrub clean.
It loses a lot of spark for a lot of people, and just because it's like theoretically okay. And then on the other hand, it's taboo to talk about it. Like old people having sex, oh, that's gross. I don't, not to be crude, but there's not a lot of things that's not gross or parts fit together and greasy slime happens regardless of how old people are. So I don't know what would make it more gross if a person is old or young. That's just
Well
how
said.
it is. Yeah.
So did this movie is about Lashonda and Sungmin. Sungmin is a Korean American male, and Lashonda is a body realistic Black woman. Did you always want to make a movie about a mixed couple, and why this mixed couple?
Yeah, always. Because why, first off, why not a mixed couple? I'm mixed. I don't look mixed for those of you who've seen me. But my parents were told not to marry each other because of their different races. And people told them that if they did, their children would have horrible lives. I'm very glad to be alive. So I'm glad that my parents got married. And we've even been told that my brother, his autism is actually due to being mixed race. So
Wow.
that's kind of always been kind of a weird thing for me because it's been something I've been proud of. And each of my siblings has taken their mixed race a different way. One of my brothers definitely identifies as white. He identifies like with the Viking side. My marriage certificate says Asian. My sister, I think, very much identifies with both of her identities. And part of it was that's just normal to us. Everybody is mixed in some way in real life. These whole ideas of racial purity are all fake. I mean, what is it like all?
It's a construct.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
social construct. And we both got married in Virginia, and my husband is mixed. So it's interesting that you bring up the marriage certificate because they don't let you choose two races in Virginia.
No, they
And that
don't.
was very conflicting for my husband, and I believe his brother. His brother's marriage certificate says white. My husband is black and white mixed, and my husband didn't want to choose between black and white, so he went with his tertiary identity, which is Native American, and he actually
Whoa.
he
Oh.
got some flack. The clerk at the office gave him a really dirty look
Yeah.
when he checked that box.
Well, what did the clerk want him to put? Black? Is that what the clerk wanted?
She There's this idea that our racial identity should be like obvious, written on our sleeve, sort
Yeah.
of, so to speak. So I think she wanted him to check black or, Mexican or whatever he
Whatever
looked
she
like
thought
to
he
her,
was.
basically. And they had that line, she repeated that line, it's a federal offense to lie on on a marriage
She
certificate.
said that to him?
Yeah, she gave us
She
serious
said he was
shit.
lying. Wow.
Just, the stink eye, like, don't try to get one over on us.
But that's crazy that she said that. Wow.
Yeah.
That,
So it's
that
very interesting, the idea of, having a mixed identity and not, having to choose, feeling like society is making you choose versus outright refusing to choose.
wow. That's and I'm sure Everett has it'd be really cool to actually do like a conversation with him or something like that within this context of this kind of film stuff, because there are a lot of mixed people who are starting to talk about this now as race is becoming the racial conversation is changing a lot in this country, as everybody knows, and especially as it becomes more tension filled. I think a lot of people, and I'd like to get Everett's perspective on this, I think a lot of people are feeling kind of stuck in a middle place because a lot of especially a lot of mixed black and white people tend to have a lot of relatives who have very strong feelings on multiple different ends of the spectrum, and that can make, part of being mixed can be very stressful because of that, because it's like, well, I have separate, I guess you become the middle person in everything, which can be
Right.
awkward. So that's why your
I don't
husband
have experiences with either of these things.
yeah. Oh, it's so I cannot believe that they actually told you shouldn't lie. Wow. So yeah,
Virginia needs to get with the times.
that's right. Well, and you should be able. Yeah, I mean, how you can't check multiple is really annoying. My clerk was really nice because I asked my clerk. I looked at her and I was like, "What do I do?" And she said, "I guess just check the one you identify most with." It was very nice of her. So I had a totally different experience. But yeah, and it's like kind of like, why not? Why not a couple that isn't represented? Because this is the reality for people all around the world. So why is it that Hollywood's reality is only white people fall in love? Which is a little bit weird. Like all the rom-coms, I can't name a lot of really popular, famous. This could be my own ignorance. Maybe you can name more than I can. But I can't name a lot of popular rom-coms or good rom-coms. I can't really name any rom-coms that have two non-white characters in them. Can you?
Good rom-coms with mixed couples.
Or any couples that aren't white in the leads. So people have been bringing up on Twitter the Blasian Cinderella, which I am going to watch and review at some point because it sounds really cool.
You've never seen the Blasian Cinderella?
I haven't seen it.
That is so amazing.
Is it? Like,
Yes,
what's it?
it was so forward thinking because you had, I don't know who played the dad, but Whoopi Goldberg and this white guy, and then they have this Asian son, and it's so beautiful.
Wow.
But I guess the meme is that like the movie was so good that no one bothered to question how a black woman and a white man made an Asian baby.
Yeah, that is adopted, I guess, or whatever.
Yes.
That's awesome. Oh, that's really funny. But like, what did you like about it?
There's Romeo Must Die, which also gets flack because the characters never kiss in the end.
It's a big thing about the representation of Asian males in the media. So even if you have Asians in romantic relationships, those relationships are sort of sterilized. That's the word I was looking for before.
Oh,
Sterile.
yeah. Do you think that could be partly though? Could be completely wrong, but I think a lot of Korean American actors specifically tend to be slightly more religious. Because I know a lot of religious actors are trying to avoid, like we had that guy who did Fireproof.
Hypersexualized.
Yeah, the guy
Hypersexualization.
the guy who did Fireproof, actually, to do his kiss in the movie, he swapped out during the point when the movie where they're supposed to kiss, the actual actress swaps out and his wife steps in. So he can kiss his wife while in the movie he's not supposed to be kissing his wife, which I think is a really, really cool idea, actually. Because I like that he's like so faithful to his wife that he doesn't want to kiss her even though it's his job to, or he doesn't want to kiss someone else even though it's his job to kiss someone else. Do you think that could have anything to do with it, or do you think it's just purely because our society does tend to like under-sexualize Asian men?
I feel like the majority of films aren't faith based, so I don't think that the religious issue is the cause of that correlation. I do think it's more about Asian men being under romanticized,
That makes a lot of sense. Well, and you
or at
don't,
least that's what people are blaming it on.
yeah. Well, and I think you make a good point that most of the Hollywood people aren't really worrying about that, worrying about faith at all. These there's a really good comic somewhere out on the internet that shows what is the fate basically of an Asian man in the movies. People should Google it. Google Asian man comic in movies, because it kind of really breaks that down and shows that he's never what he can do is he can do martial arts, and he can make funny
Computers.
jokes. Yes, he can make jokes, and he can do computers. Those are things that he can do. Um, but yeah, he can never get the girl. The black guy can sometimes get the girl, but if he gets the girl, there will be this like emphasis on his blackness and how that somehow makes him uber virile or jungle virile or something like that. There'll be some kind of, because there's that spectrum, the stereo. Right, it goes down to when we joke about penises.
Hypersexualized versus non-sexualized, absolutely.
It drops down to when we talk about penises, like the stereotype of certain races having very, very small or very, very large. Like the way that we think about sex and our bodies is all affected by how we've decided to separate sexuality into races, which is ridiculous. Granted, there was a study done about different body sizes, so it is probably true that different body sizes are certain ways, but I think that should have nothing to do with how we romanticize people. We kind of obsess. Our culture's already obsessed with dicks to begin with, but we kind of tend to obsess about how we like to classify and label people.
Agreed.
You're making a funny face. I'm not supposed to talk about dicks on this podcast, am I?
We should probably keep the duck. That's probably the last time we should say dick right there.
Okay. Yes. I'm a little bit more, those of you who will end up following this podcast, I don't know if this is going to end up being in, but I'm going to drop it in anyway. We'll probably find I tend to be a little bit crazy and a little risque, and that's why Sam's an excellent producer, because she's kind of going to hold me back a little bit, make it a little more, we can be family friendly, we can do it.
Yeah, we're trying.
We're gonna get there. But one of the things I love about Sungmin so much is he's just an ordinary, like, real guy. He can still have an Asian identity without fulfilling all these stereotypes. He doesn't know martial arts. He sucks at the violin. He lost chess to a 6-year-old, which his wife does not appreciate. He doesn't have to fulfill those stereotypes to still have that be part of his identity. And similarly, like LaShonda, I do think that there is... basically, she just doesn't fulfill the stereotypes that people have of, the mama. I don't know. I can't. She's just a strong, powerful woman, and I love it. I love her. I'm not gonna just sit here and repeat stereotypes. I don't need to do that. So, why did you end up liking? I was really excited about you liking this movie and wanting to produce it, and I've been really impressed and shocked and overwhelmed and really happy about your passion. Why did you want to pick this up?
I think that this film is really important for representation reasons. I love the idea of a romantic comedy that's set within a marriage. I think we've been sold a bill of goods with this idea that marriage is the happy ever after. It's the end of a story. Marriage is the beginning. It's the beginning of a long, hard journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say it's not beautiful. It's not to say it's not great. But it's a journey and it's work. Marriage is work, and our movie is showing that.
And I think it's showing it in a fun way. I think it shows both. It shows how work can. That's another thing, is people don't like work in our society. They don't like hearing you say stuff like that. But
Yeah, people think that, if you have to work in your marriage, then maybe you got married to the wrong person, and that's ridiculous.
yeah. Well,
Like,
because
marriage should be this effortless thing, and we find the same thing with relationships. People bail on relationships the second they get hard. The second you have to really dig in and say, okay, we may have our disagreements, but we have to work at this.
well, it's like saying if you have to work at your job, it's not the right job, the kind of thing. No, you
Right?
go to your
Got to
job.
be happy all the time.
Well, you can enjoy it, and there's a really weird way in which you can enjoy suffering. I don't want to say it like that, but you can enjoy sacrifice. You can enjoy like conquering. There's a certain awesomeness in being able to conquer a goal and say, look, I did this. Like an athlete, I pushed forward, I met this goal in my personal life. I did this for my spouse that they could never have imagined that I did. They could never have expected, but I did it because, and it just makes you, I mean, my natural finishing of that sentence is because I am that awesome. Like, that's the kind of self-esteem boost it gives you when you know that you're making sacrifices, and not because you're trying to guilt your spouse into do something, or the passive aggressive, it's not one of those passive aggressive competitions to see who's suffering more, but instead like an actual happy sacrificing situation where it's like, I can do this for you and see you light up and see you surprised, and that brings me joy too. I love John Piper's statement. He's the guy who pushes Christian hedonism a lot. And
I know about that.
He's a good guy. And I love his story about the wife. No, he comes and brings flowers to his wife, and he tells, you've probably heard this one already, right? Maybe? No, he brings flowers. If he brings flowers to his wife and she says, why did you bring me flowers? And he says, because it was the right thing to do. She's not going to feel that's not love, but that's what we right. think that like marriage is. Yeah. But if he brings her flowers and he says, and say he had to sacrifice a lot to get these flowers. Say it was difficult. Say he had to like go battle a dragon. If he brings her flowers and says, I did this because it makes me so happy to see you happy. Well, that's love. And that's how marriage is supposed to be, that the sacrifices we make are difficult, and you do change yourself. You don't try to change the other person, and the other person should be thinking the same way. That is very difficult, but that's supposed to be because it makes you happy to see the other person happy, and that's awesome. I like that.
Okay, wrapping up our discussion of A Fair Movie.
Is there anything else, just for people who have no idea what this film is about, that you would like them to know?
I think to kind of add to that last thing about making the other person happy and thinking about the film itself, one of the things I like about our film is we get to the end of that question and follow the next question logically. That's about after Act 2, where it's the end of I'm trying to make the other person happy and it makes me happy. Well, what happens if it doesn't make you happy to see the other person happy? What if you don't care about the other person? Then are you screwed? Because it really feels like that. And I like that our movie gets to that next point. I guess getting a little bit personal. There's been a lot of opposition in my life to my marrying my husband. And so then when I married my husband, just because of a lot of things that I'm not going to go into now, maybe later on, they might come out during the film's history because it might be helpful. And a lot of that impacted the first 6 months of my marriage. So I love my marriage and my husband, but we had some very tough stuff that actually causes a lot of people, like the kinds of things that people get divorced over, we have experienced. We're very young, so I'm not saying that we know anything. But that
much
feeling...
younger than... Yeah, you got married much younger than a lot of highly educated people tend to get married.
Yeah, about 10 years younger.
And that's exactly, this couple in our movie.
Yeah. And so that moment where you feel like where Sungmin sits down and he asks the old homeless guy, what if he doesn't have any desire to even desire the person, then what? That's a moment that I've come to in my life. And so actually a lot of writing the script was part of therapy and part of working this out and realizing what happens then. And I'm not going to spoil it. So, but there's a really lovely little thing at the end, very, very end of the movie that was very, very important to me. And I'm really excited about everybody seeing it because it will probably might make some people mad, but it's been very valuable to me, and my experience is valid too. So,
absolutely, opinions are valid, experiences are valid, and I think this film is going to help a lot of people. So on that note, thank you so much for listening to our very first podcast about our film and about marriage and all this lovely stuff. Please feel free to email us at movie@mysweetaffair.com. If there's anything you'd like to talk to us about, we will respond personally, Jen or I. And thank you so much.
Oh, that's cool. We have an email address now.
We have several email addresses. That's the shortest one.
That's the best one.
movie@mysweetaffair.com.
Oh, that's
Thanks,
cool.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.